You're listening to the Back Home Network, presented by Homefield Apparel.
And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another victorious episode of the Assembly Call, as today your Indiana Hoosiers moved to 3-0 on the season by beating Milwaukee 101-70. This was a game that the Hoosiers eventually built a lead in the first half. Milwaukee made a couple runs here and there. Typically, a Lamar Wilkerson three would stem the tide. And then in the second half, just methodically built the lead over the course of TV timeout, outscoring them by 1, by 2, by 4. Then by 9 and by 3 again at the end. So just gradually built the lead up into what became a 31-point victory. And another impressive offensive showing from this team. And they continue to deliver on that end of the floor, hitting 14 three-pointers, shooting 50% from three-point range, and scoring over 100 points. Scoring 100 points for the second straight game. So great offensive performance, and lots to break down. With this one, as there were some definitely some positives, but a few things you could nitpick if you were so inclined, and we'll do that for you on the show tonight. I'm Andy Bottoms here with Jerod Morris, the coach, the birthday boy. Brian Tonsoni is going to be joining us from Assembly Hall. He's going to attend the press conference and then hop on with us, so he'll be here eventually as well. And with that, we're going to start this show the way we start every show. That is with our Hoosier Proud Banner moment. I didn't really, as was probably evidenced by the beginning of the show, wasn't really sure if I was sitting or Jerod was, so not sure that I totally prepared a banner moment. Did have a couple things in mind. I'm going to go to late in the game. IU's up by 25. Tayton Conerway diving for a ball while pressuring the ball handler in the backcourt. Eventually, it ended up being a 10-second call anyway, but it was a really great night for Conerway. I think was a guy who had played more of and he will play a complementary role, but had not been at the forefront of what IU had really done offensively, and thought that tonight was a lot more aggressive on that end, really understood, opportunities that he could take advantage of to be able to get the ball in the lane. And I thought really took advantage of his speed and size, being able to finish in there, was really disruptive defensively, as that play at the end indicated. But I think that's just the mindset that this team seems to have. They got, defensively, they played better in stretches toward the end of the game than they did at the beginning, and just were kind of relentless in that way. And I thought Conerway was really emblematic of that, and had easily his best game offensively as a Hoosier. And so we'll talk about some of that as well. He ends up with 21 points, 6 assists, and a really solid game from him, and displayed that ball pressure that we that was advertised coming in, and he had it tonight. Just loved the hustle at that point in the game. The bench got excited, so really good performance from him. So we'll go with that as banner moment for tonight. And our banner moment, as always, brought to you by our friends at Homefield Apparel, who is now in their 10th season sponsoring the Assembly Call, and their 4th presenting sponsor for the Back Home Network. As you know, Homefield has the largest collection of vintage IU apparel that you will find anywhere. And since IU is their flagship school, more high-quality gear with unique IU logos from the past are always right around the corner. We've talked the last couple of times about the Game Breaker jackets that they just came out with as it starts to get a little colder. For those interested in that, they've recently had some IU quarter zips come out. They had some football shirts after the game, the Refuse to Lose shirts after the Penn State game. So you can bet as the IU basketball season heats up, and as the IU football season comes down the stretch, there's going to be more great things to be had from Homefield from an IU perspective. And they also have so many other schools as you look across their entire catalog. And so as you look at that, start thinking about getting holiday gifts and things like that. Make sure that you sign up for their text alerts and email alerts. That way you can find out the newest releases and the newest sales as you go that way. And if you have not shopped Homefield before, you can use our promo code HOME23 to get 15% off of your entire order. Again, that's promo code HOME23 for 15% off. Once again, that website, homefieldapparel.com, wear one for the team. And with that, it's time to move the ball, find the open man, get some opening thoughts from the rest of our team. And for right now, Jerod, that is you. So opening thoughts on a 30-point IU victory.
Well, first of all, sorry to leave you hanging there in the opening segment. As you'll probably hear, there's a lot of background noise happening in the house right now. So probably better for someone else to be in the controls.
It's fine. We didn't actually talk about it before, so it's just that moment where it's a game of chicken to see who jumps in first to actually to say something. So all good.
But maybe there is actually something relevant to Indiana basketball here, because we've been doing this for so long. We're so experienced doing this that we're able to just come on here without a lot of pre-planning, and you're able to know if I don't pick it up in the first couple seconds, now it's your turn to do it. And that's what you get with experience. And I think one of the things that we're seeing with this Indiana team here early in the season, especially offensively, is what can happen even if you haven't had a lot of time to build chemistry together just by playing together, just by having older guys who have a maturity about them and an understanding of how to play the game, you can come together well and, immediately look like a functioning offense, which Indiana has. And obviously the 3-point shooting is going to be the headliner. What was the stat they said during the game? Indiana's made 10 or more threes for the third straight game. It's the first time since 2016. I have a feeling we're going to be hearing a lot of first time since 2016 stats with this team. But, it wasn't just the 3-point shooting. I think you saw, a lot of the cutting and screening, that has just become so indicative of this offense and just so different, so starkly different from what we've seen over the past 8 seasons, that movement. And so, seeing the offense come together so quickly, with these guys really showing their basketball maturity. And then I thought in the first half, what did Indiana score? 50 points in the first half, and Tucker DeVries had 2. So this has felt kind of like an offense that's really going to be powered by Lamar Wilkerson and Tucker DeVries, and obviously a lot of nights it will. But it was nice to see there in the first half, without DeVries being able to get going offensively, other guys stepped up, and plus you really didn't see him forcing a lot of shots. And so an offense that's just going to take what the defense gives it. Do a lot of things, move the ball, set screens, make cuts, wait for the defense to make a mistake. They'll be ready to pounce on it. And so I just think, like you said, there are things to nitpick. We'll talk about the defense, the rebounding, some of those things. But I mean, this offense is it's so starkly different from what we've gotten used to watching. And so far, at least, it's been, so effective with guys who it feels like are really talented individually and have a lot of room to grow together as they learn each other's games even more.
Yeah, I think you continue to hear with each broadcast team that's been on that they've all remarked separately about the unselfishness of the team, and I'm sure some of that is coming from their interaction with Coach DeVries leading up to the game and some of those kinds of things. But I think it also shows on the court. I think DeVries is a great example of that as we start to talk about the first half a little bit and go into our 40 minutes in Bloomington. In the first half, as you said, I thought they were pretty physical with DeVries, made it tough for him to score. And I'm pretty sure he had the first basket on a back cut of the half and then didn't score the rest of it. And I thought that he but didn't force things like you said, and only ended up with 2 assists. But I think his passing continues to be such a strength. And it's a team where these guys trust one another to be able to step up and score. And I think Wilkerson was, he was the leading scorer in the first half. He ended up with 15, hit 4 threes, one from pretty deep. But I thought he just, every time Milwaukee made a little bit of a run and they hit a 3, he just would answer with one of his own. But I think he's another guy who, I believe this was late in the first half, he really had it going toward the end of the half and had just made a 3. And it's the final possession that IU would end up getting in the first half. Drives into the lane, could have forced up a shot, but drew the defense and laid it off to Reed Bailey for an easy basket. So I think he's certainly emblematic of that kind of unselfishness and things like that, even when he really had it rolling. But I thought he was, picked up the slack when DeVries wasn't scored a lot in the first half and just continues to be a fun player to watch offensively.
He's so fun to watch. I mean, look, we're going to be saying this a lot this season just because we haven't seen a whole lot of this, in the past almost decade of IU basketball. But just watching him shoot is so much fun. A, just the expectation that it's going to go in, and B, just seeing someone with mechanics that are that tight and a release that quick. I mean, he's able to get that shot off, with limited space, which is just a dimension, that we haven't seen a lot of. So that was definitely great to see. I thought we saw a lot of good things from Reed Bailey tonight. especially offensively. Saw him scoring in a variety of ways. You know, we had that great dunk on the alley-oop from Enright off the backboard. You know, but you saw him make a three, got himself to the free throw line. And so I really think you saw that versatility that he brings to this offense. And that's the great thing. And when you go down the line, Sicily made a couple of threes in the first half. It was nice to see Nick Dorn get back in there, and in 7 minutes he scores 8 points. And so it feels like an offense, again, like I said, that's able to take what the defense gives it. And there are going to be nights and opportunities where it's kind of your time to step up. Now, tonight was one of those, everybody feast kind of games, and they're not all going to be like that. Indiana's going to face much tougher defenses. But, I do think we're seeing guys that have skills offensively that if the defense is going to give them opportunities to make shots, they're going to be able to do it, and that's one of the things that I think we're going to like about this team. Now we'll have to see again, as they get challenged, kind of what they kind of fall back on. But it really feels like a team, especially offensively, that's going to have a lot of different ways to beat you. And that's nice to have that dimensionality because it just isn't something we've had. It's always been plan A works or we're kind of screwed. Plan A can be pretty good, but if it doesn't work, we're going to be kind of screwed. And here it feels like there's other plans and there's other options and there's guys that are ready to step up and have the maturity to do so, even if their number's not being called every single game. And that's the benefit of having an older team.
Yeah, I thought you mentioned Reed Bailey. I thought Sam Alexis had really been such a spark coming off the bench and in games when Bailey had either gotten into early foul trouble or had struggled. And tonight it was a little bit of the opposite. Alexis came in, got 2 fouls really quickly, and it was left to Bailey to really play the balance of the first half. So up in that first half, 18 minutes, but 12 points, got to the line 4 times, as you said, led the team in assists with 4 as they continue to put him in, kind of give him the ball around the elbow or out by the 3-point line and let him turn and face and find cutters and things like that. So I thought one of his better games. Still at times struggles a little bit to finish inside, but really runs the floor well, and his skill set was on display there. And the other guy who stepped up during a little bit of foul trouble was Conerway that we touched on earlier. I thought he really got more assertive when Wilkerson sat down with his second foul. And Wilkerson ended up coming back in later in the half. But that really, to me, felt like when Conerway made a point to get into the lane and looked a little bit more to score for himself in some of those situations. And that's where the spacing is just so important for this team compared to what we've had in years past. There was a play where it's just 5 out. He saw his guy, just took him, drove him right down the lane and put it in. He did that multiple times in the second half as well. And so I think as you talk about that optionality of different guys being able to step up and play, those are 2 guys who, Bailey's had some good scoring games already, but there had been times that he struggled, but they needed him to step up with Alexis in foul trouble and Conerway kind of they needed a little bit more out of him offensively in that half. And both of them really answered the bell.
For sure. Should we talk about the defense?
Yeah, I think we should before we transition to the second half. We probably do have to talk about the defense and rebounding a little bit.
So let me ask you, because so the first half, I think they scored 1.11 points per possession, and it definitely seemed like kind of the loosest defense that we've seen from Indiana. I guess what I saw was, kind of part of that was it did feel like there were some miscommunications and just maybe a little mental sloppiness at times, like being late to a shooter, just some stuff that we haven't seen a lot of. And I also thought Milwaukee made like 4 or 5 really tough shots in that half that kind of contributed to it. And then maybe you don't get credit, for a defensive possession that was mostly played well. So I'm not overly concerned about it. I think this team obviously is a smart team, has played pretty good defense. It just seems like the kind of thing that can happen early in the first half after a big win. You come back, it takes you a little while to get going. But I thought Milwaukee had a little bit to do with that, just in terms of their shot making. I will say the one thing, it did seem like some of the athletes on Milwaukee gave us a little bit of trouble, off the bounce, just, kind of not being able to keep a man in front of us. And we know that's going to be an issue, especially on the perimeter. So I think we saw a little bit of that, but, still overall a pretty solid defensive performance with some room for improvement.
Yeah, I think the other part of that was the second chance points. They got 8 second chance points in a really short window. I think between 2 TV timeouts, they had all of them. And I think it ended up being 8-0 second chance points by the half. That evened itself out a little bit over the course of the game as Alexis was really aggressive on the glass in the second half, led to some second chance points for IU. And I know they talked a little bit on the broadcast more from a rebounding margin standpoint that it was a lot better in the second half. But yeah, I thought that was really where things got out of sorts. Their first shot defense was not terrible, or in some of the cases, like you said, they forced them to take tough shots, but just couldn't secure the rebound. And so I think in that regard, a couple of the things that you not so much habits, I guess, as we talk about in some of these early games, but some of the things that you worry about a little bit is how well can they keep guys from getting to their spots on the court off the dribble, and how well can they clean up the defensive glass, especially as you get in this time of year. You watch other Big Ten teams and some of the size that they have. Now, what IU is doing offensively could provide just as many challenges for some of these big guys as well. So, but I do think, those are things to continue to watch. I thought they cleaned those up a bit in the second half. But Milwaukee made some tough shots, but it was almost like the same guys made roughly the same tough shots over and over again. So maybe they aren't tough shots in that scenario. The Jovanovic, where he would just kind of bang into guys for a while, shoot a tough fadeaway that was really tough to block. I thought he made probably 4 of those over the course of the game. The Hubbard, I think, was the other guy who made some tough mid-range shots, kind of falling away, would always seem to end up on the ground. Whether that was necessary or not is potentially another conversation, but you had some of that. And then the other guy, like on a dead sprint, shooting the ball, going into the bench and making, or going into the first row of seats and making one. I definitely thought they made some tough shots, but they also missed some shots going to the basket that IU was there. And there was just I thought decent stretches of defense, particularly kind of early to mid part of the half, and then there was just some breakdowns toward the end as well that they I thought were better in the second half, but still maybe had a little bit of room for improvement. The other thing, just real quick to kind of talk second half stuff, you look at that, DeVries ends up with 10 points that really all came in a pretty short burst. There, Conerway with 10, Wilkerson with 9. Those 3 guys were really the guys that made it go in the second half. Didn't shoot as well from 3-point range, 5 of 14 after making, I think, 9 of 14 in the first half. But, I thought those guys continued to stay involved. I thought DeVries, again, was really patient, didn't take bad shots, may get a little bit of heat from his dad for telling him to challenge that one play that didn't get overturned. But I thought he returned to a little bit of what we'd seen from him in the second half. And then Alexis is the other guy who I thought really from an energy standpoint was able to get into a little bit of a flow without the fouls, and had one possession, I think, where he had 2 offensive rebounds to really keep things going. And I thought him playing more helped IU keep them off the offensive glass a bit better until late in the half. But anything else the second half, Jerod, stand out to you?
No, I mean, I think you mostly covered it. I think it was a kind of a solid, like, professional second half, the way Indiana should play in a game like this. Again, there's some ups and downs in the first half, and Milwaukee's even getting it to 8-9 points, and it's like, we gonna have a game here? And in the second half, I thought they really tightened up some of the things that have been looser in the first half, and just methodically built a big lead. I mean, a 31-point win over a team that entered the night where they're 191st in KenPom, picked to kind of challenge in their league. Like, that's a good solid win early in the season for Indiana. And it was nice, frankly, to see them keep their foot on the gas over the final 4 minutes. I said out loud, I was watching with my kids, I was like, yeah, they're probably going to put all the walk-ons in. It's like, well, can't really do that now. You gotta make sure that you play to the analytics to a certain extent. And they did at the very end of the game, obviously, but otherwise, stayed pretty aggressive. Allowed Nick Dorn to see a 3 go down. So I think some of those things, see a 3 go down. He made his first one when he stepped right on the court, so maybe it wasn't so important.
Well, that was technically a 2. That was technically a 2.
That's true. So, that's true. So no, it was, again, I think part of the frustration with the last 8 years of Indiana basketball is it felt like you couldn't take for granted anymore the necessary stuff happening. It's like you always had to be on alert. Man, what bad thing could happen? Where I think a lot of IU fans, you kind of got used to, okay, let's see how we do in the big games, but we know we're going to be able to handle business, when we should be able to handle business. And that's what tonight felt like. They didn't bring their A game to the court by any means, and they still scored 100 points and beat an okay team by 31. So, that's where I think you walk away from this. And I think it kind of further reinforces the feelings of normalcy, maybe or competency or adequacy that feel like they're coming back to Indiana basketball that, are just so easy to take for granted until you look up and they're gone and feels like you're struggling to get them back. And so I think that's kind of why, a lot of us are having fun watching this. It's like, oh yeah, this is what it like can and is supposed to feel like.
Yeah, and I really think offensively, we'll just kind of end with this before we take our break, but they just can, and this was talked about in the Marquette game, just methodically built the lead and just continued to run their stuff, even though they talked about Oakland wanting to really slow them down a little bit, not let them get into their offense till a little bit later, and it just didn't really phase them. I mean, the beginning of the first half the beginning of the second half was not great offensively. So through the first 8 possessions, they only had 6 points. For the last 26 possessions of the first half or the second half, you had 44 points, 1.69 points per possession during that stretch. And just at every media timeout, it was just a little bit, the lead was a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And it didn't really matter who came in. They still scored well, even when the walk-ons came in. I know you had Miles and Dorn in with those guys, but really just didn't let up at all through that scenario and have these lapses where, we all know some of these games in recent years where you'd get a lead on one of these teams that you're supposed to just blow out of the water and then just exhale, relax, and let the other team back in the game. And that just there were a couple of times in the first half where there was a little bit of that, but like immediately somebody would hit a 3, they'd get a stop, they'd make another shot, and then the lead's back up to 10 before you know it. And then by the end you kind of look up at this game and I won't say it felt unspectacular. That's kind of, it was like an understated 101 point performance, if there can be such a thing, just in terms of how effective they were. It points to the basketball maturity of this team. That's what you do when you have that level of maturity and experience. It's not that you're not going to have bad stretches on the court. It's just that you can correct them after 2 minutes and they don't go for an entire half. That's what we've seen out of Indiana basketball so often. It's just not having teams that played with that level of maturity. And, what we saw, that steady building of leads, just the steady, hey, we're going to take care of business here. That's the maturity that we're talking about. And it's not going to win every night, but it's going to give you a chance to win most nights when you go out. Yep. All right. Well, with that, we will take our first break. And when we come back, we're going to continue breaking down this 101-70 victory in Milwaukee. All the moment in today's game and share a few stat sheet stories as well. You're listening to the Assembly Call. Stay with us.
Hi, this is AJ Moye. What's the only thing better than upsetting Duke in the Sweet 16? Celebrating it with friends afterwards. Join Jerod, Andy, Ryan, and Coach for the Assembly Call after every IU basketball game. Go Hoosiers!
Welcome back to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I think producer Eddie was keenly aware that AJ Moye was at the game tonight and saw him. So excellent choice of using him for the intro there. I'm Andy Bottoms here with Morris, and we are breaking down IU's 101-70 victory over Milwaukee. And it's time now for today's Hall of a Moment, where we highlight some key moments that made a difference in the game. And Jerod, I'll start with one from the first half. There was a play where it was right after Trent Sisley had come in, and Tucker DeVries is yelling at him to get over to the other side of the court, that he wasn't where he was. I'm going to go with Tucker DeVries on this one, given that he probably knows the offense as well as anyone. Yelling at Sisley to be over there. I think the ball eventually gets knocked out of bounds. Maybe somebody gets fouled. There's a stoppage. IU doesn't shoot or lose the ball in that. And you could tell he was kind of agitated in the moment that he got there. But as soon as the ball went out of bounds, he goes and gets like with Sisley and is talking to him about where to be, what he needs to do, different things like that. And like later in that same possession, Sisley hits the first of 2 threes that he hit in the half. And I think there was another play. I think this was more in the second half. Sisley was in again. He was going over to the side, and I think it was Connor Enright kind of grabbed him going off to tell him something. But I think when you talk about that maturity and those kinds of things, like that just is something that kind of leadership or whatever you want to say in terms of being able to be comfortable to pull a guy aside, to help bring a young player along and tell him what he needs to do, and trust him in a way that, hey, I'm going to go right back to you because you're, get in the right spot, make the shot, all those kinds of things. I just really speaks well to, I think, the leadership on this team and just little things that you see. I'm curious what else Coach saw as he was there, but that stood out to me just from a leadership standpoint and being able to help a young guy who is going to be asked to be a key contributor in a lot of games this season. Certainly stepped up in the Marquette game, had some good moments tonight, but really cool to see.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, point like you just said. I mean, it points to the maturity and the experience. And I think having a guy like Tucker DeVries, not only his talent, not only his experience, but also his specific experience in this system, to be like a true coach on the floor, is going to help young guys like Sicily come around, who already is a naturally high IQ basketball player, but, has to adjust to the speed of the college game and learn everything that they're doing. That's going to be invaluable learning from that experience that he has above him, on the roster. And Tucker DeVries, obviously chief among them. Speaking of Hall of a Moment, how about Coach live from the Hall there with those beautiful chairs behind you as the background?
Hey, how's this sound? Is it working all right here? We got stuff going on.
Yeah,
man,
it's
audio's great.
Yeah, let us know when the leaf blower starts to come up behind you so we can prepare ourselves.
Yeah,
it's down.
It's down on the other end. So great moments tonight. I'm going to be all over Connor Enright with his hands and his deflections, and I don't know. He got some rebounds today, but man, there were some times where he just got in there and created havoc. And led to some of the better defensive moments in the second half. Coach DeVries was not happy with the effort and the defensive performance in the first half, according to what he just said in the press conference. But it's just the ball movement. I mean, I don't know if I could really go back and pick just one moment. The off the backboard dunk is fun, and Conerway's dive for the loose ball there at the back end. Like, we need a whole segment for Hall of Moments with the way this team plays. And I think that's Coach DeVries just said he wants fans to really appreciate these young men and how hard they play, how they play the game, how hard they cut, how hard they dive on the floor. And I think that we've seen that tonight, and we saw it tonight. We've seen it in the games so far this season.
Well, and to piggyback off what you said earlier, Coach, with Connor Enright, because I'm with you. There were a couple times, that I'm, just watching the game, and he's just being a pest out there and just creating things with activity, and it's not necessarily going to show itself in the stat sheet. That's why I thought it was great seeing him knock down the 3-pointer. He took 4, only made the 1, but if he can be a guy that can step up and knock those down when he's open, that's really going to be huge. Because otherwise, obviously he can do some other things offensively, as a guard, but he's not really, challenging you off the drive and isn't necessarily a dynamic playmaker. So he's going to need to, to be able to shoot, to have value offensively. But if he does, what he brings defensively really, really can be important, because he's just the kind of guy that you hate playing against, but he's also the guy that sets the tone for everybody else.
Yeah.
And Tayton Conerway.
Yeah. I thought the first half, when I looked at the stats at halftime, I was shocked it said 4 rebounds. I was shocked he didn't have more. I felt like he was really involved rebounding as other guys would try to steal their guys off, and he would go get it. The other basket he made was just a smart play where guys kind of trapped in the post somewhere. He makes a really hard cut to the middle of the lane, and they kind of said on the broadcast maybe took a shot that was not that hard and made a harder one, but he did make it. And one of the other things they said on the broadcast was that DeVries had said something to the effect of, I don't think people get it yet with him, or something like that, about how important he's going to be and how much they're going to really appreciate him by the end of the season. It was something like that is the way they relayed the story. And I think you can kind of see that as well. But Jerod, what moments stood out to you?
Well, the other one was just in the second half, and it was a short one. It was just a 2-possession sequence. Josiah Miles, I thought, had a great defensive possession. And I think this is the one that ended in a block. But just, did a great job. I think he was guarding a guy off the wing, did a good job off a drive, and then I think blocked the shot, and then came right down on the other end and made a 3-pointer. And he's a guy that it's taken a little while to get going. But as you start to look at depth, because I think, look, we have 5 really good starters. They're all experienced guys. They've, done some things at the college level. Like, they're going to be good. What is the depth going to look like? Playing, moderately decent teams like this, you can kind of test that a little bit. And so I thought just seeing that moment from him kind of showed you the ceiling he has as a 3-and-D type guy, which if he can be that guy off the bench for Indiana will really be helpful. So again, we'll have to see it against better competition, but I just thought that flash, that's what you're looking from him, for him to do. And so you see it now. If he can get that consistently, he can really become a useful bench piece.
Yeah, I think he was able to get himself to line a few times, only made one of his 4 free throws, but also had that athletic putback dunk. Some of the plays that he's really put on tape so far have just been really high athleticism plays and things like that. But as I talked about on the broadcast, I don't remember what the stats were, but one of only 2 guys to have, I think it was a certain number of points, certain number of made threes, and maybe rebounds was the other a year ago. So the talent's there. I think it's just trying to get himself acclimated a little bit to playing a more secondary role as a backup and trying to bring some of that. But I think if you look at what energy he can bring, you bring guys like him and Alexis off the bench from athleticism and an energy standpoint, I think that becomes really key. And if Dorn can continue to build on what he's doing, you get a little bit deeper as you go there. Coach, I know you said you had another moment that you wanted to hit before we transition to stats.
Yeah, this is totally not basketball, but I'm walking on the court, and a freshman from Bloomington North stops and says, "Hey, I'm a big fan of the show." So, shout outs. I told him I was going to shout him out. Ryan Decker, freshman, Bloomington North. It's just, guys, I can't tell you how awesome it is to represent our brand down here at football games and basketball games, and the number of people who appreciate what we do, and Ryan being a young guy who had enough guts to come up and talk to this ugly guy and say hello, I appreciate that quite a bit. And we finally have a team that we can be happy about, and again, without rehashing all the other stuff like this. I'm sitting next to Josh Pose up there, and we're not supposed to be cheering, but we're high-fiving underneath and fist bumping, and shots. We're calling shots going in when they're halfway down. I mean, those are moments. Like we're all having moments now. Hall of moments, basement moments, whatever. Frisco, Texas moments because of what's happening, and it's not all going to be roses. Even Coach DeVries said how sustainable is scoring 100 points, but enjoy all of these moments because it's basketball, and I think it'll soften some of the pain and suffering when there is a bad game and is a loss because of the way these guys play. So thanks, Ryan, for saying hello. I just wanted to make sure I got that in.
Awesome. All right, well, let's move to stats now and take a look at some stat sheet stories from tonight's game. As we go inside the numbers, this segment is brought to you by our friends at Jackson Hewitt Tax Services. If you live in Bloomington or the surrounding areas and you want your taxes done right, contact our friend and Chat Mob Hall of Famer Megan Mahaffey and her team in Bloomington, Bedford, and Martinsville by calling 812-339-3334 or by visiting jacksonhewitt.com. And I'm old enough to remember when we used to joke that there weren't as many threes in the game as there were in that phone number, but those days seem to be behind us. Thankfully.
Yes.
As we look at stats, guys, I think your eyes are immediately drawn to the shooting numbers. 14 of 28 from 3 on the game, so 50% there. Shot 56.7% overall from the floor. Free throw shooting down to 70.4. Had some misses there, but still getting to the line a decent amount. And 23 assists on 34 made baskets. Continued to really be a strength, and only 7 turnovers. Those tended to come in bunches a little bit, but the fact that IU took care of the ball so well, that they've mentioned that one of the ways that Milwaukee really wants to score is to be able to get out on the break and get out in transition. And IU taking care of the ball so well really limited those opportunities over the course of the game. And those are things that if you're sloppy and do things like that, you can let an inferior team hang around and get some easy baskets. And IU just didn't do that on the offensive end. So those at least are the numbers that jumped out to me on offenses from a team perspective. Jerod, what stats stood out to you?
Well, yeah, I mean, the shooting numbers are all so much fun to look at. I want to, just take a little bit of a different angle, which is not just, Indiana's shot diet, but the shot diet being allowed by the defense. Because as much as we've lamented, Indiana not taking a lot of 3-pointers, the other part of that equation is Indiana hasn't been in the top half in the country in, 3-pointers allowed defensively since like 2018. And we've spent 4 or 5 seasons in the 300s, which means, we haven't been taking a lot of threes. Our opponents have been taking a lot. And that math problem has just always been really difficult for us to solve. Well, Indiana right now, after 3 games where, we know we're, taking and making a lot of threes, have made at least 10. We're 119th in the country in 3-point attempt rate, which is good. I mean, 43.5% of our attempts are from 3. We haven't seen numbers like that in a long time. But defensively, Indiana's opponents are only taking 27.6% of their shots from 3. That's 12th in the country. And again, tonight it was down to 17. What are some of the reasons why when we've seen, inferior teams hang around in Assembly Hall? It's because guys get hot from 3. And Indiana's just not really allowing them to do that as much. And so the complete reversal of that math equation is, part of what is making me even more bullish that this team could be better than expected. Because we've been on the bad side of that. And so the fact that Indiana is doing as well as they are defensively of not letting teams get comfortable from out there is as impressive and important to me as what's happening on the other end.
Yeah,
I'd like to piggyback. I'd like to piggyback on that because
I was just going to ask you your thoughts on the defense. We talked a little bit about it before, but what did you kind of see from being there on that side?
The issue today, if I had the first half, the 40 minutes from Bloomington, was I don't think they were as intense. And Coach was quoted as saying they didn't think they were as hooked into assignments and stuff in the first half. But what happens is when they forced a lot of mid-range twos tonight. If you go back, and no, I'm not going to rewatch it, but we asked a question, and Josh Pose asked a really good question about, were you trying to run them off the 3? So going to your question, Jerod, they're locked in on shooters when they're deep in the corner. They're not on the nail slot rim. They're not over help where you help and then they kick and a kid gets a step in 3. They were going over ball screens so not to give up a 3. And Coach DeVries said they took a lot of contested 12-footers and hit some. Those were the shots we wanted them to take, and that's by design. He didn't say design, but that's what he meant. And so sometimes we get caught up in the ball going in the basket and defense isn't good or someone gets to the rim, but it's that math equation. We had a coach who was talking about it without saying a math equation. They took, 40% of their shots from threes. They were hitting 39%, and he said we didn't want them on that line at all. And their final numbers are they only hit 5 threes. Now, when you have a fast-paced game, you're going to give up 70-some points just by pure possessions. But they took a lot of forced 2s, and they hit them. I mean, they threw in some stuff, banked in some stuff over people. You notice also it was strategy because when they bully balled with the number 3 guy against DeVries, they didn't send help. They were like, we're just going to trust our one-on-one defense. If a guy raises up and hits a 10-footer, hats off, we'll come down and hit a 3, and we'll go up gradually over the course of the game. But that was a scouting report thing. So fans, when you watch too, we don't know ahead of time what the scouting report is, but when something looks off a little bit, like, man, they're hitting a lot of jumpers, or that guy's eating up DeVries in the middle, that could very well be by design because we have a coach who will adjust to that. But their defense was set to not give up 3s tonight, and they didn't. And I think that's a change that has been good for Indiana basketball.
Yeah, Coach, one other defensive number just in the aftermath of the Marquette game was the fouling. IU ends up with 19 fouls tonight, 11 in the second half. Had a bunch of guys that ended up with 3 fouls. A couple went out in the first half with 2 fouls. Did you notice anything different from the Marquette game in terms of, like, we talk so much about, keeping your chest out and your hand, up and your hands out and some of those things. You notice anything different there, for, a few days removed from the Marquette game?
Yeah, I think they emphasize getting your hands up and getting your hands off. Like, they were intense. Well, not as intense in the first half. In the second half, they're up in space. But they were up in space with their chest, not their hands. And then they were really anticipating first steps. So instead of having hands there, and when someone swipes the ball across your face, reaching your hands, they were anticipating a lot more, especially in the second half when I think Coach got into them at halftime. They were a little bit better on sliding or turning and running with their hips. But, boy, they were very handsy early in the Marquette game. They were jazzed up. They wanted to put pressure, and they had a lot of fouls and hands. And this game was really good because they didn't have a foul the whole first TV timeout segment. And then Dorn gets in, and he's not in shape yet. Defensively is the hardest thing to get back into shape and game shape, and he fouls 2 in a row. And you had a couple guys who picked up the fouls. You didn't have the mass fouling that happened in Marquette. And you got to believe that he worked on it. Well, Conerway today in the press conference said we gave up too many offensive rebounds, 8 in the first half. We're probably going to work on that. You're going to see a coach that holds kids accountable and tries to get them better from game to game and even within the game with halftime adjustments. But I thought they were a lot less handsy today and more in tune with their feet once they got going defensively in the second half.
Yeah, it's interesting. You look at at least the way that I charted the defensive numbers, points per possession first half was 1.11, second half was 0.89. So pretty huge difference there. Milwaukee ends up at a point per possession even for the game. So definitely got a little better. As you look at some of the other numbers, second points, we talked about that. We talked about the offensive rebounds. IU ends up +2 in second chance points, 13-11. The fast break points were 14-6 in IU's favor. Points off turnovers, 24-7 in IU's favor. So a lot of those little areas that we talked about different times over the course of the season really showed up well for IU. Bench points, 25-12. Just lots of those things I think are impressive. Coach, any other numbers that you wanted to hit?
I was gonna talk a little bit about that offensive rebounding. 8 in the first half and 8 second half points, and then they fixed it a little bit. That's going to be the Achilles heel of this basketball team. They're just going to have trouble rebounding. But it's nice when you shoot the percentage we shoot on 3 and score. We can outscore people if they're getting second shots. So one of the things I think, Andy and Jerod, in basketball is you want to be perfect in every statistic and everything. If you are weak in one area, you got to compensate in others. And I think we're witnessing areas where this team can compensate and make adjustments while trying to clean the rebounding and those things up as much as possible. But I think that's going to be, if we lose games, we're going to probably point it to giving up offensive rebounds and things like that. It's essential. He mentioned today that's how you get out in transition. You got to get stops. So I know they're emphasizing it, but sometimes the more physical team just gets more rebounds, and I think we're up against that quite a bit going forward.
Yeah, I think as you look, real quick, since a couple individual things, just kind of the balanced effort. I think 10 guys scored in the game. You had 6 guys get at least 6 or 7 guys get at least 2 rebounds. You had, I think, 8 or 9 guys with an assist each. Just a team effort as you look through it that way. And again, you have 3 guys played over 30 minutes. Nobody played more than 34 though. So you're able to get guys involved, get people in a bit of a groove, and had a lot of different guys contribute, which I think building the depth, as we talked about with Miles and Dorn and Sisley, being able to have those guys get minutes where they can really contribute, I think becomes big and a great benefit of some of these games. So Jerod, I know you got to run, so I'm going to throw it to you for combination last call. And if you want to throw out your game ball and Hoosier Hustle awards in there and wrap it all up in one, that is fine. But I'll kind of throw it to you before we take a break.
Thank you, sir. Yes, and speaking of numbers, the last number I'll mention, Indiana opened the season ranked 40th in KenPom. Indiana now after 3 games is 18th. Now, does that mean anything in the grand scheme of things? Perhaps not, but it is nice to see a team outperform its analytical expectation early in the season. And that's what tonight was. For me, it was just another fun, enjoyable night of watching Indiana basketball because of the style being played and the effort, for the most part, with which it was played. But again, just seeing a good basketball program operate like how one should early in the season, which is taking care of business, being able to win in different ways. And what I really love about it is it's not like Indiana is dominating these games because of some massive physical advantage. they're dominating these games because they're just playing much better basketball in a lot of different ways, in ways that are easier to kind of translate mentally when you project it forward into a lot of different matchups. It's a lot easier to see that working than, oh, we dominated in the paint with 45 points because we have a couple of big guys. And so, not all of these early season wins are created equal. And I think you're seeing a lot of things that are going to translate to January and February basketball because it's just good, smart, tough basketball. And I love seeing that, in an Indiana team. And that's what we're seeing. So the two guys tonight that I thought most emphasized that, Conerway gets my MVP. His offensive efficiency was terrific. And I loved seeing the effort he played with at the end, and Enright, the hustle. I just thought those two guys, really set the tone with what they do defensively. And I think it's going to be a backcourt we're really going to like, and that people are really going to hate playing. Like, they're not going to be the best backcourt every night, but you're going to get great effort and toughness from those two. And then the other guy is going to go make 50% of his threes in Wilkerson. That's a great foundation to have. So again, just a lot to like tonight that just has reinforced the good vibes, but also like the actual good basketball that we're seeing with our eyes when we watch this team play.
Absolutely. All right, cool. Glad you could join us. And with that, we will we'll take our next break here. And when we come back, Coach and I will do our we'll look ahead to IU's upcoming opponent. That's all next here on the Assembly Call. Stay good.
This is Nick Zeisloft. I never miss an open three, and I never miss an episode of the Assembly Call.
All right, welcome back to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I think Nick Zeisloft, the guy who would probably excel in this offense. I'm Andy Bottoms here with Coach Brian Tonsoni as we finish breaking down IU's 101-70 victory over Milwaukee to move to 3-0 on the young season. It is now time for our game balls presented by our friends Allie and James at Bloom Environmental. At Bloom Environmental, they provide expert radon, mold, asbestos, and crawl space solutions to protect homes and improve indoor air quality. You can call them today for a free estimate and mention Assembly Call, and you get 10% off of your system. You can learn more about them at www.bloomenviro.com. All right, Coach. So Jerod is on record with Tayton Conerway as his Game Ball award. Who gets yours?
Well, Andy, there's a huge buzz down here in Bloomington, or it might just be the leaf blowers right below me blowing out the bleachers. So you guys are going to have to deal with me real quick. I'll be quick, and then we'll mute the mic again.
But as long as it's not a swarm of angry bees attacking you, then I think we're okay.
It's people are going crazy down here. You can just hear the buzz in Bloomington.
Palpable buzz, as John Rothstein would say.
Exactly. Lamar Wilkerson for me. I think Conerway is a great choice. 21 points. 6 assists, 4 for 4 from the line. Wilkerson, 24 points. I think when you don't always want to give it to the leading scorer, but I thought his threes were really, really huge tonight, and his leading the score. So I'm going to go Lamar Wilkerson and give you a choice.
Well, I appreciate that. I was going to go Conerway, so he will end up getting it. I just thought really set the tone defensively. We talked about it a little bit before you got on. I thought he really stepped up when Wilkerson went to the bench with 2 fouls in the first half. Was more assertive on the offensive end, hit that 3 early, which really gave him some confidence. And then he could just kind of bully his guy to the rim whenever he wanted to, it felt like. And so he ends up, 21 points, 6 assists to lead the team. Did have 3 turnovers, but a couple steals to go with it. So thought a really, really impressive performance from him, showed what he's capable of. No qualms with the Wilkerson pick there, but we'll go with Tayton Conerway, which is his first game ball of the season. So it's now DeVries with 2, Wilkerson, Conerway, and Sicily with 1 apiece. So now we'll move to our Hoosier Hustle Award, which Jerod gave to Connor Enright. I have a feeling that is where yours is going as well, but I could be wrong. So I'll turn it over to you to say for sure.
No, I encourage those of you who watch from home to get down here to Assembly Hall for a game and just watch him off the ball. just watch him run, watch him get into people, watch him cheer. He is an energy guy. He had 5 rebounds. He was cleaning up a lot too. So if Indiana's going to fix their rebounding, you need good guard rebounding. The bigs keep other bigs out of the lane for the rebounds, and the guards go in, and he was really pursuing rebounds. He had some assists tonight, and he makes his first shot in the half court as an Indiana Hoosier. I think he was 0 from the field until tonight. He hits that 3. That stat is according to Josh Pose, our friend. But he just stirs the pot a little bit, and we've always had those guys on opposing teams that we just didn't like to play because they bothered the heck out of us, and now we have one. 5 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal in there in 26 minutes. Only scored 5 points. I'm going along with Jerod as that Enright gets my Hoosier Hustle Award.
I think that's a good pick. I think had I gone Wilkerson, then I probably would have said Conerway for this one. But no issue with the Enright pick. Thought he was really aggressive there, and he was a guy you kind of watched from a fouling standpoint, trying to beat guys to spots and not be as handsy. And he had picked up a kind of a cheap foul. Guy throws his head back in the backcourt, which seemed like he was just kind of smiling about after the fact. But I think you'll probably take one of those a game just for the purpose of what he's doing out there, and certainly just thought some of his cutting and rebounding. Like I said, I would have guessed from watching the game he had more than 5, and like you said, he was able to clean up a lot when other guys would go put a body on their man. He would just go in and get it. So ends up with 5 points, 3 assists, as you said, 5 rebounds as well, and a steal. So in 26 minutes for him. So that is his first Hoosier Hustle Award. We talked a little bit about the guards, and I know I forget what the numbers were from the Marquette game, but again, tonight you look at that starting trio of Wilkerson, Enright, and Conerway. They end up with 50 points, 8 rebounds, 11 assists, and 3 turnovers. I think you can live with those pretty easily from that trio, and that's two games in a row where the really limited turnovers. The assist numbers, quite honestly, were a little bit lower tonight than maybe they were in that game. But a lot of scoring, a lot of defensive pressure. I think Wilkerson has shown me to be a better defender than I think we could have anticipated. Just really works hard on that end, really fighting through screens. I saw today. Not going to be what he's known for by any means. He's too good of a shooter for that. But I think he's been better than I would have anticipated on the defensive end.
It's a guards game. I want to just touch a little bit on Enright. I loved when he got that ball in the lane, and he wasn't looking to shoot. He was looking to pass it out for a 3, and he was wide open. The whole crowd groaned. But I think that shows what kind of kid he is. He's here. He knows his role. His role is to get people the ball and to defend and cause havoc. He's not really looking to shoot. He will take a shot when needs to, but I thought that was an awesome play. Reed Bailey makes a nice comment, too, about they were asked a lot about the unselfishness, and you're talking about assist and the guard play. And Conerway was in the interview room, and Bailey was, and Bailey just said, all the guys came here to win. And we know that in order for us, this group, to win, we have to share the basketball. And I'm paraphrasing there, not a direct quote. But that's, again, what I think these fans are going to fall in love with, even when you have a loss or two, is that mentality of service and servanthood on the basketball floor, I think is just really good to see. And, it's a guards game, and the guards are playing extremely well. And when you got forwards like Dorn coming in and Sisley coming in, hitting threes, and DeVries, your forwards are like guards too now in this offensive system. So just a pleasure to watch. And really, I don't know. This was, of the 3 games, this wasn't their best game overall, especially the first half. They just weren't. It just something was missing a little bit, and yet they had 51 points and 14 assists on 18 made baskets and shot 64% from 3. And I kind of felt like it was sluggish. That's a heck of a thing to watch when you're watching your favorite team.
I would say so. 8 guys attempted threes, 8 guys made it, at least one. Just doing a little bit of everything. So can't complain about that part of it. So quick look ahead to IU's next opponent. They next play Sunday at 5:30 on the Big Ten Network against Incarnate Word. Coming into tonight's games, Incarnate Word was 2-14 in KenPom, Don't know if they've moved up or down a little bit just based on other results around them. They've played 3 games, but they've yet to beat a Division I opponent. They beat a couple non-D1 teams and then lost to Colorado State by 34. If you look at the numbers, again, a little bit hard because KenPom doesn't take into account the stats of these other games, but don't turn the ball over a lot. Don't really crash the offensive glass. So that might be, while that was a weakness of IU's tonight, might not be something they're in a position to exploit. The defensive numbers were pretty ugly, as you'd expect, after getting beat by 34 to Colorado State. Don't have a lot of size, but they do have 3 guards who are averaging at least 17 points per game. So it'll be another good defensive test for what can Conerway, Enright, and Wilkerson do on the defensive end. I think they're a little bit smaller as you look at them, and basically had 2 guys. They scored 64 points against Colorado State, and 2 guys, Davion Bailey and Taj Staveski, accounted for 47 of those 64 points. So really guard-heavy team. Another good test for what IU can be defensively in that, and maybe something that they won't be tested as much on the glass. And if you want to think ahead to another potentially good 3-point shooting game, Colorado State shot 25 attempts from 3 in that first game and made 52% of them. So if IU can continue to generate those looks, it seems like they will potentially be there for the taking. Worth and Incarnate Word, I think, is supposed to be one of the better teams in the Southland, although McNeese is probably going to win that one pretty handily, but not a terrible team. I think that's the other thing to keep in mind about Milwaukee. They were the preseason pick in the Horizon League, which is not one of the top leagues, but it's also not one of the bottom leagues. And I think in watching them tonight, I think there's some talent there. I'd be curious to see where they end up finishing. So this could be a game where it's not going to be a quad 1 or a quad 2 win, but could it be a decent quad 3 win because of what Milwaukee does? Maybe. Don't think this Incarnate Word game will be that, but it's not a sub 300 team either, which doesn't hurt you. But hopefully another chance to get some of these guys playing time. I think Dorn, you saw a guy who was itching to get back in it and was ready to shoot every time he touched the ball. Had some time to make up and was really aggressive out there. But I think you like what you see from him. Really good size, can do a little bit of everything. Was aggressive player. So I think it should be a game where you get him out of this game, get his feet wet a little bit, get him back into it, and maybe you can build on that a little bit as you get him into that game, and also continue to get some of the bench guys some run.
The thing, Andy,
any thoughts
with
on
these games, just with the games, you have to play some of these games to get stuff on film to teach, right? Obviously, I think as DeVries is here longer, he'll add another game or 2. We're not in position to play like some schools, like Alabama's playing just a wild, crazy schedule of big Power 4 school after Power 4 school after Power 4 school. We'll get there, but these games are good, as you said, to get Dorn some playing time. And it's game-shape condition that he has to get into, especially on the defensive end. And his body looked really good. I'm way up in here in K, but he just looked like he belonged on the college basketball floor from a physical standpoint. And I think that's going to add DeVries talked about it. Coach DeVries talked about it. It gives the more depth you have, like in the Marquette game where you had fouls, you don't have to worry about that. And if the drop-off isn't as much when you have a talented guy, and he said Dorn fills it up in practice. So let's just add another shooter to the mix once he gets his sea legs going. I think that's going to be important. But you got to play the Incarnate Wards. I think Lindenwood is next, and then another big one with Kansas State Thanksgiving week, leading into some bigger games against Louisville and Kentucky. But you need these games. You need these games for teaching purposes in the film room and in practice. I don't think you're ever going to see 11 top-notch games in the non-conference schedule.
No, especially now with this kind of roster. That's what I'm curious about. And obviously there's lots of guys to replace for next year as well. So maybe this is something that takes place over time. But, curious to see how the schedule evolves. But, yeah, I don't think you can put yourself in a position where you don't have some of these games with so many guys that have, playing together for the first time and all those kinds of things. So I think it's been laid out pretty well, probably the right schedule for this team, even though there's parts of them that you watch that maybe they're further along than the coach would have expected them, that we might have expected. But either way, good opportunity to get some things on film and go from there, like you said. So with that, we'll wrap up here in a minute. A reminder to check out our friends at Home Field Apparel. You can use the promo code HOME23 at checkout to get 15% off your first order. And with that, it is last call. And Coach, I will throw it to you first, and we'll wish you a happy birthday in doing so. Appreciate you being on the show on your birthday, but at least you were treated to a good basketball game and a positive experience overall with watching this team. So that was at least something fun for you, I'm sure. But happy birthday to you from all of us. And for as much as you love people coming up to you and being able to represent the show, we are equally as appreciative to have you be somebody who can be out there and representing us the way that you do. So happy birthday. Well, and what's your last call for the game?
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and a shout out to Matty Knox in the chat. Yeah, the ceiling keeps getting a little bit higher and higher with this team. I'm not ready yet, Matty, to give a definitive great answer, but I think making the tournament is definitely there, and I think start talking seeds a little bit when you start seeing Indiana popping up in a 6 and 7 lines on some way too early bracketology. By the way, that's a good thing. So. I'm a little older than 39, but thanks, buddy, and Dalton and all you guys. I appreciate every single one of you. I'm going to have some cake. My wife iced a cake for me. It's waiting at home. She'll be in bed, but I'm going to get a glass of milk and a German chocolate cake, I think, was made for me in a couple hours. I got a 2-hour drive home. But thank you, Andy. The biggest gift and the last call for me is this team's fun. This team's fun, and one of the mantras or the sayings that I have when I talk to coaches or people who want to go into the coaching profession is, if you have a team that you're okay losing with, meaning all the other stuff, they play hard, they're coachable, they're enjoyable, and you just get beat by the opponent, that's the best kind of teams to coach. Well, they're also the best types of teams to be fans of. I mentioned Conerway's dive on the floor. You're up 24. That is, and then Bailey today just really, he did give me a birthday gift. He said, we came here to win. And when winning is the number one priority, it doesn't matter. And DeVries also said, they don't care who takes the shots or who scores in what half. Dial that up for me as what I want a team that I root for and the school that I went to represent our university. That's a great gift as a fan. It's a great gift as a 59-year-old bald guy who thinks he knows basketball. This team so far is very, very enjoyable, and I have a feeling that when we have to talk about a loss, it won't be as bad as it has been in many, many years before. So my last call is, you better start finding Peacock and Big Ten Plus or wherever this team's going to be on the streaming services, because this team's fun to watch, and get your tickets here before these prices start going up on the secondary market. This team is a must-see, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. They've really been fun to watch, and even in the moments tonight where they would let Milwaukee creep back in a little bit, there was always an answer. We talked about that at the beginning of the show, the maturity that comes from having this many veteran players. It was funny, they show the 2 starting lineups for these teams combined, and it was 9 seniors and 1 junior between the 2 teams. And I think it showed a little bit, like this team is just able to handle some of those ups and downs a little bit more. And then basically just over the second half, just ground them down, just relentless offensively, continuing to score, played better defensively in the second half, and really just extended the lead and slowly extended the lead. And it's 3 games where they've outperformed the analytic expectations, which is how you rise in KenPom that much. That's good news, hopefully, for the net when that comes out in early December. But a team that really is just continuing to push themselves to meet these expectations, to beat the expectations of what they're going to do, and really fight till the end, no matter what the score is. And so I feel like a broken record, but all the things that Coach DeVries talked about coming in terms of the way they wanted to play and how they were going to play and how hard they were going to play has really been on display. And I think you see what Reed Bailey talked about. I think you see that unselfishness, and you see that it's guys who have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder from where they were playing before or the role they were playing in that situation before, and really care about winning and are, seem genuinely excited to represent IU and have done so really well through 3 games. So lots of season left to see where things go from here, but a really good start as you look at that. And I think it just has continued to build that enthusiasm for them. And they certainly play a fun style of basketball to watch, and I have thoroughly enjoyed it so far. So we'll see what they can do on Sunday against Incarnate Word. Try to go to 4-0 on the season. As you said, they've got Incarnate Word and Lindenwood coming up, and then they got their next major conference test the Tuesday before Thanksgiving when Kansas State comes to Bloomington. So we'll go through all of those games and be here with you to talk about it. But that will do it for tonight's show. If you want to see us do the show live and be part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/assemblycall. Don't forget to go to substack.assemblycall.com to join our free email newsletter. Special thanks to Bob Thompson for the music you hear on the show. Special thanks to John Ringer of Rig Design for designing our logo. Happy birthday again to Coach, and thank you for listening. We'll be back to talk IU Hoops with you again on Sunday night. Until then,
take it from the green light himself. Keep your elbows in, eyes on the rim, and go Hoosiers.
Here I come,
All right.
Mrs. Stansoni.
Yeah, 2 hours.
No one ever gets in the paper for passing.
It's all about the shooting.
absolutely.
We got shooters to talk about. Is that
That-
Indiana State? Home field Indiana State shirt?
Yes, it is a home field Indiana State shirt. Yeah.
I have that same shirt. That's sharp.
Yeah.
Brent would be happy with you tonight, Andy. If you
Well,
watch it.
I don't want to get on his bad side, so we can't have that.
No.
So,
All right,
although
I'm
he
gonna
and I
sign off.
will be adversaries on come Sunday night football, but
that's right.
Yeah, but we're good up till
Lions
then,
versus the Eagles.
So. Yes, sir.
All righty.
Yes, sir. Should
I'm
be
going to
good.
pack up and head for home. Good seeing you. Thanks, Eddie. Thanks, everyone watching. I appreciate you all, and have a good day.
Yep. Safe travels, Coach. Happy birthday.
Yep, we'll see you.
All right, Eddie. Thank you, sir. Sorry I blew through the home field read. Just
That's all right. That's all right. We'll figure it out.
That's right.
Appreciate it.
That's what we're
Okay.
here for. So, all right.
Thanks
man.
everybody. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it. All right.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.